Good morning, everybody. Before I start, I have to tell you, I love talking to meeting planners. Did you notice I said good morning and you all said good morning back? I have figured out that because you guys do this for a living and know every single thing that could possibly go wrong, you are the nicest audiences we ever get to talk to. I mean, I've been at places where the speakers say to everybody, hey, why don't you all stand up? And the people kind of... If you say that to meeting planners, you guys jump right up. And I know why. Because when you do meetings and the speaker says it, you get up so the other folks in your audience will stand up. So thank you for being here. It's a big thrill for me. You heard Patrick say in that very nice and long introduction that what we do is make our products, our clients' products and services more valuable. That is the key of what we're going to talk about this morning. We don't get involved with our clients showing them how to make their products better. You guys already have amazing products. You saw that video. You see what Myrtle Beach has. They already have an amazing product. What we do is work to change our clients' perception of the products and services. Now, why does that matter? The other day, I was listening to NPR. They were interviewing a gentleman whose business was doing very, very well. And he was talking about all the money they were making, all the trips they were taking, just how wonderful they were doing. And the interviewer, Steve Inskeep, said to him, you know, you keep telling us about this, about how well your business is doing, but haven't you guys heard about the recession? Don't you guys understand we're in bad economic times? And the gentleman they were interviewing said, you know what? We heard about that recession thing, but we decided not to participate. And that's, I agree. Thank you, Todd. And so that's what I'd like to talk about a little bit today, how you can avoid participating in this recession thing. Now, let's face it, most of you in the room, if you're meeting planners, you all do essentially the same thing as one another, which means at some point when you compete, you have the problem of possibly becoming a commodity. Those of you who are in the destination business, you have that same issue. And so the key to building your brand value is differentiation. The key to getting people to pay more money for your products and services without changing your operations is differentiation. And that's what we're going to talk about today. The trouble, of course, is when I say differentiation, people say, oh my goodness, but that's so hard. How do I differentiate my business? I do exactly what they do. I want you to know that this is not a new problem. And so I want you guys to take a trip with me. We're going to go back in time. We're going to go to the 1740s to Leipzig, Germany. We're going to meet with a guy named Johann Sebastian Bach. Everybody heard of him? Okay, you guys are meeting planners, so you're supposed to respond, right? Anybody heard of him? There you go. And by the way, here's a rule. This means yes. This is what the dinosaurs did in Jurassic Park, okay? So everybody's heard of him, yes? Beautiful. Okay, so Johann Sebastian Bach was a composer. He wrote lots of music that you have heard. But before he became successful as a composer, he made his living by being a piano teacher. Well, he wasn't exactly a piano teacher because pianos had not yet been invented. He was a spinet teacher. And a spinet, as far as I know, is a miniature piano. And a lot of the music that he wrote that later on became his masterpieces, he wrote on the spinet. One of them was a piece of music called Minuet in G. You heard of it? Okay, how many of you have kids who have taken piano lessons? In that case, you've definitely heard of it. Not too many. How many of you have kids? How many of you know what kids are? You're scaring me, I have to tell you. Okay, so he wrote Minuet in G as a class for his students. And I thought it was important for you to understand the way Minuet in G works. So when I was asked to speak here, they asked if there was anything I needed. I said, yeah, I need a couple easels, and I need a baby grand piano brought up on stage. There were only two problems. A, nobody could lift that piano all the way to get it up here. And B, I can't play the piano. But I thought, well, he actually played a spinet, which was a miniature piano. So I would bring a miniature spinet, and I would play Minuet in G for you. And it goes like this. Thank you. Do you all now know Minuet in G, even my tortured rendition? Okay, good. Yeah, there you go. Yes. Okay. So now we're going to go from 1740 to 1940. We're going to go from Leipzig, Germany to Vicksburg, Mississippi. We're going from Johann Sebastian Bach to my personal hero, Sonny Boy Williamson. Now, these guys are about as different can be. Johann Sebastian Bach was short. Sonny Boy was 6'6". Johann Sebastian Bach wore that kind of red velvet Eddie Munster suit with the pilgrim shoes. Sonny Boy had been to England. He fell in love with English tailoring. He wore all black English wool suits, even in the heat of the Delta summer. Johann Sebastian Bach wore that gray wig. Sonny Boy wore a bowler's cap. So they were about as different as, well, they had some similarities. Johann Sebastian Bach had 3 names, right? Johann Sebastian Bach, Sonny Boy Williamson. And they were both composers. And they both wrote music that you've heard that was stolen, or now I think we say sampled, by other musicians. And Sonny Boy wrote a song called Peachy Tree. Peachy Tree goes like this. Thank you. Now, I know what you were thinking, and it's not, wow, that guy can play. It's, what does this have to do with building my brand? Well, here's the amazing thing. Both of those guys are as different can be. Both of those pieces of music are as different can be. But they both use the same 7 notes. And if you remember the sound of music, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti. I love meeting planners. Yeah, there's do, but that's just an octave. Do, do. It's the same note, it's just 8 steps higher. Every piece of Western music ever written uses those same 7 notes. And every well-developed brand uses the same 7 points. Now, whether you're going to use this brand building techniques for your destination, for your company, or for yourself, so that you can rise up in your organization or in your church or synagogue or wherever you want to make a difference, these are the same 7 points that every single well-built brand ever uses. And let's jump right into them. By the way, each one is only 3 words. And I have even though I have an art degree, I happen to know that 7 points times 3 words equals not that many words. So there's not a lot for you to remember or to write down. We have it on our website. It's in my book. There's plenty of places for you to get these things. The first one, the most important one, if you remember nothing else that I say this morning, remember this as you build your brand. All about them. Most branding is additive. We put as much as possible into the brand because we want to talk about, well, we have this and we have that and we're here and se habla español and 800 number and website and locations and all of that. But the best marketing, the best branding is a sculpture. It's simple. So people say, well, how do I do that? Well, there's a great story about Picasso, and Picasso was in his studio and he's got a big block of granite right in the middle of the studio. And one of his students walks in and he looks at this big block of granite and he says to Picasso, "Master, what are you going to do with this giant rock?" And Picasso says, now he probably said it in French or Spanish, but I will translate it into English for you. Picasso says, "I am going to carve a lion." And the student, "You're going to carve a lion from this? But look at the size of this thing, and it's all bumpy and craggy. That seems really hard. How are you going to do that?" And Picasso says, "No, actually, it's very easy. All I need to do is take this hammer and take this chisel and remove everything that doesn't look like a lion." And think about that. As you build your brand, how can you remove everything that doesn't look like a lion? How can you remove everything? We already know it has to be all about them. It has to be emotional. It has to be simple. Think about the best brands. One word you can describe them in. What does Volvo stand for? Safety, that's right. It's a car, by the way. It's not a safety device, but it stands for safety. What does Vegas stand for? Sin. And think about it. They've even niched sin. Specifically, it stands for adultery. What happens here? Come on. Right, you all know it. By the way, it doesn't mean necessarily that you're going to do it, but you could. Think about the cars we drive. At home, we have an SUV, four-wheel drive, sits up high, climbs mountains, right? Goes through fjords, and that's what you see in the commercials. I live in Miami. We have no mountains, no snow, no dirt roads, and we also have a sports car, go 180 miles on the Nürburgring in Germany, on the Autostrada in Italy. I live in Miami. We can't get 35 miles an hour on I-95, you're lucky. But you could. So as you make your brand simple, think about how to remove everything that doesn't look like a lion. Point 4. Make it quick. Make it quick. Point 5. Thank you. Point 5. Make it yours. What are you going to own that nobody else owns? We said Volvo owns safety. Is a Volvo safer than a Mercedes-Benz or a Cadillac or a Honda? Who knows? Who knows? But they have convinced us of that fact, and so we believe it. So how are you going to make your brand singular and ownable? Let me show you how to do that. We're talking about cars already, so let me use a car example. In Germany, there are 5 car companies. There's Opel, there's Mercedes-Benz, there's BMW, there's Volkswagen, and there's Audi. They all manufacture exactly the same thing, right? They all make cars. And if you look at the entry-level models, you have the Opel Senator, the Mercedes C-Class, the BMW 3 Series, the Volkswagen Passat, and the Audi A4. They are within an inch of each other in height, in length, in wheelbase, in width. They weigh the same. If you get in that kind of that pewterish and metallic color, they look the same. They have leather interiors, great stereos. If you were in one and you were blindfolded, well, and hopefully you weren't driving, you can't tell the difference. But the car companies need you to tell the difference, don't they? So what do? On the front, right between the headlights, they put logos. Opel's logo is a lightning bolt. Looks like that. Mercedes-Benz logo, you all know it. It's a peace sign. Looks like that. But stop for a minute and look at them geometrically. Opel divides their circle into halves. Mercedes-Benz divides their circle into thirds. BMW, the ultimate driving machine, they divide their circle into quarters. Volkswagen, all they did was take the Mercedes-Benz logo and flip it over, and then they removed the vertical and replaced it with a W, right? And then I think the guys from Audi came along. They didn't know what to do. They said, the heck with it. They just took the other guy's circles. And so even the logos are exactly the same. But the cars stand for very different things, don't they? So what does a Mercedes-Benz stand for? Just yell it out. Luxury, okay. What else? Class. That's right, they're classy. Okay, what else? Snob appeal. Okay. What else? Expensive, of course. Success, okay. Anything else? Prestige, okay. Any bad things? I didn't. Debt. Yeah, they're expensive. Okay. So a Mercedes-Benz is luxurious, classy, snobby, expensive, successful, and prestigious. We agree? Now let's look at BMW for a minute. Is a BMW luxurious? Sure. Classy? Snobby? Prestigious? Successful? And expensive? But it's one more thing, right? Fast, right, fast. They're sporty. Fast. So a Mercedes-Benz is all these things. A BMW is all those things, plus it's faster, it's sportier. Now here's where building brands gets really exciting. It's also where I demonstrate to you what a complete and total geek I am. Because this actually gives me goosebumps. These attributes, which are the attributes of the brand, become the attributes of the consumer. A Mercedes-Benz driver is luxurious, is classy, is snobbish, is affluent, is successful, is prestigious, right? Or wants to be. A BMW driver is all those things, but tends to be a little younger, a little hipper, a little trendier, a little sportier, a little faster. We used to say, you are what you eat. You've all heard that. We now say, you are what you consume. So BMW drivers, demographers, people who do studies on consumers, call BMW drivers PDBs, which you would think stands for people dressed in black, not people driving BMWs. So think about it. How many of y'all have BMWs in the audience? Just two, or the rest of you are embarrassed to raise your hands? So the BMW drivers are the same as the Mercedes drivers, but a little bit younger. You are what you consume. Now, think about this for a minute. Because of technology, everything gets smaller, right? Think about when cameras were first invented. It was right after the Civil War. They went west in those Conestoga wagons. The Conestoga wagon was the camera. And then in the Victorian age and the cowboy days, like the 1890s, you've seen the movies, the guy puts the shroud over his head, he holds up that thing that explodes, and they take the picture. And the camera was like that big, right? That big bellowy thing. And then cameras got smaller and smaller and smaller. We had Brownie cameras and box cameras and Instamatic cameras, until now cameras are these little flat credit card size things that you can fit in your pocket. Or think about phones, think about cell phones. Think about the first cell phone you ever saw. You remember that? No, that was the first cell phone you ever bought. The first one you saw was that box that had the strap, and you remember it had the curly cord? And if you think about it, it should have come with either a handcart or a dog, because it was basically a marine radio that people would carry around. Then Motorola came out with a cell phone. It was so big that its nickname was the Brick, right? Which tells you how big it was. Then they had the Mini Brick. Then they had the StarTech, and they got smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. Until today, cell phones are so small that they have names like Sliver and Razor. And Razor's so small, it's got no vowels. It's just RZR. Sliver is SLVR because it's not even big enough to fit the vowels. But one thing keeps getting bigger, and it's the keys to these cars. Do you remember when a key was a flat piece of metal? Someone said, leave the key under the mat. You could do it. Today it'd be like the Princess and the Pea, right? The mat would go. Why is that? Well, I was speaking to a group once, and a woman said, because you have your alarm in the car, in the key rather, the alarm switch. And I'm thinking to myself, you know what? I have in my phone my address book, pictures of my kids, my date book, connection to the internet, and it's thinner than the key. all the key has is the alarm. I don't really think that's it. But she said, yeah, when you press it, the car tells you where it is. I said, oh, you know, that's not really what the car does. Think about it. When you pull the key out and you press the button, what does the car do? It honks and it flashes the lights, right? It's flirting with you. It's whistling at you, right? And it's winking at you. What's it saying? Over here, you have a Jaguar, you have a Lexus, you're successful. She said, that's not what it's for, it's so you can find your car. I said, okay, lady, listen. The next time you go on vacation, when you pull into the garage, you know the garage at the airports, and they always have animal names for some reason. In Miami, we have flamingo, and we have the dolphin. And if you go to New York, you have like the rat and the palmetto bug. So I said, the next time you go in, don't check what animal garage you're in. And then, you know, the floors are all different colors. Don't check what color you're on. And don't remember the letters or the numbers. I don't know about you, but I make up like pornographic acronyms to remember that it's 3AA, you know. But anyways, I said, but don't do any of that. That takes a while, it'll sink in. I said, don't do any of that. Just go on your trip. When you come back, I want you to walk into the garage, hold up your key and press the button. You ain't finding your car. She said, it's so if you lose it on the street. Now I'm thinking, okay, lady, if you can afford this car and you don't know where you parked it, but I let it go because where were we going to go with that? The point is that the keys are made that big for one very simple reason. They don't fit in your pocket. And so they put a big honking logo on it, and you do this. The next time you go to a business lunch, a power lunch, look at what everybody has in front of them. We call it the digital stack. They will have their phone, their smartphone, their PDA, right? They will have their Prada sunglasses, and they'll have their car key. They're telling you in that little stack who they are. If it's a BlackBerry, it says something very different than if it's an iPhone, right? If it's a pair of Ray-Bans, it says something very different than if it's Dolce & Gabbanas. If the key is to a Honda, it says something very different than if it's to a Bentley. Not good or bad, mind you, just different. So when we started branding Miami, one of the things we wanted to do was we wanted to make Miami a fashion brand that people would brag about. The scenario we wanted was quite simple. 15 years ago when I would travel, people would say to me, where are you from? I would say Miami. They would say, oh. Now when I travel, people say, where are you from? I say Miami. They say, oh. Same word, just it used to go down, oh. Now it goes up, oh. Right? All we wanted was when a couple in New York says to their friends, we're going away this weekend, we're going to Miami, they go, oh. By the way, if they said we're going to Orlando, it says something very different, doesn't it? It says something about where they're staying, what they're going to do there, who they're taking with them, all in one name. Because we own hot and fashionable. Vegas owns sin. New Orleans owns the whole Cajun, jazz, blues thing. So again, my question becomes, what are you going to own? Point 6, all 5 senses. All 5 senses. We think, for some reason, that people make decisions based on 2 senses. What they see and what they hear. And if you think about most marketing, brochures, you see them. Websites, you see them and hear them. Television, you see it and hear it. Billboards, see. Radio, hear. But the best brands understand that you use all your senses to make decisions. Because think about it, when we were hunter-gatherers on the Great Savannah 1,000,000 years ago, our sense of smell was crucial to our survival. You would tell if somebody coming up to you was a threat or a friend based on sense of smell. You'd find food, you'd find mates based on sense of smell. When 2 dogs meet each other, for example, they don't shake paws, do they? They circle each other and they're sniffing to find out the status of the 2 dogs. Now, we don't do that in civil society. Although there are a couple bars off the strip. See me about that later if you're interested. Anyways, we use all our senses. So here's an example. People say to me, no, but how do we use that in our branding? Well, think about this. You guys are at this conference. The number one reason people attend conferences, every study says it, is networking. So you're here to network. You're here to meet your peers. You're here to meet your friends. You're here to meet potential business opportunities. So let's say there's someone here that you have identified. I want to meet this person. I need to do business with this person. And last night at that wonderful reception we had, you see them across the room, right? It's almost like a shampoo commercial. Everything slows down, gets fuzzy, goes to slow-mo, right? You're walking across the room. But before you do the check, right? Hair, breath, zipper, right? And you start rehearsing what you're going to say, because you're going to walk up to him and go, hi, my name is Bruce Turkel. I've really been looking forward to meeting you. And you do your whole, any of you been there? It's just me, right? Okay, so I see the person across the room. I'm walking across, and you put your hand out, you introduce yourself, you're all excited about this meeting, and what do? They give you a cold, wet fish. Yeah, I heard it. Someone went, ugh. She even put, right? Instantly, from that cold, sweaty, clammy hand, you got a visceral response that changed your whole opinion. And if that wasn't enough, the person is a close talker. And whatever they ate is like, okay, good, I finally got you, right? Now, none of that is intellectual. None of that is really what we see and what we hear. It's a feeling. If you guys read Malcolm Gladwell's book, Blink, he talks all about that, how we use these senses. Someone who was a genius at using it was Mrs. Fields Cookies. She figured out that nobody actually goes to a mall to buy cookies. Didn't take that much to figure out, but she figured it out. And so what they did at Mrs. Fields Cookies is they changed the routing of the ovens. Instead of having them go out of the mall, they routed the oven into the mall, the exhaust rather. And they put bowls of chocolate, of cinnamon, of sugar, of butter in the ovens and turn them on and send those smells wafting out into the mall. Now, you remember the old cartoons where the old woman would put the pie on the shelf and then the wolf was walking along whistling, and then the odors would come and the odors would grab the wolf by the nostrils and draw him? Why can't we do the same thing? But how do you incorporate sensual cues? How do you get people to understand how your brand smells, how your brand feels, how your brand tastes, as well as how it looks and how it sounds? I don't know if you've noticed, but Weston does ads with scent strips in them. This is what a Weston smells like. If you go to an auto show, you'll notice that as you walk into the different booths, they actually change the flooring. So you walk into Mercedes and it's carpeted and it's nice and soft. You walk into Cadillac and they're deeper carpeting and it's even softer. But you walk into Porsche or BMW, they have slate floors, which are hard because they're all about performance. Maybe it's the type of paper you use on your business card. Maybe it's the way your folks answer the phone at your office. Maybe it's that you put cinnamon in the coffee at the office if you have a lot of walk-ins, so when people come in, they get that sense. It's easy, it's cheap, and people don't defend against it because they're not thinking about it. All 5 senses. Point 7, I kind of cheated on point 7 because point 7 is 1 word, but since I told you they're all 3 words, I said it 3 times. Repeat, repeat, repeat. Once you figure out what your brand is, how to remove everything that doesn't look like a lion, how to make it simple and sensual, and all about them, you say it over and over and over and over and over and over again. Because just when you're starting to get bored with your message, your consumer is starting to internalize it. Repeat, repeat, repeat. Think about it. BMW has been saying the ultimate driving machine since 1972. Now, ironically, repeat, repeat, repeat does not give you license to be repetitive. Instead, you have to think of new creative ways of saying the same old thing over and over and over again. For the marketing people in the room, that's called job security. Because we have to come up with new ways to say the same old thing. Repeat, repeat, repeat. And so I will. Point 1, all about them. Stop talking about yourself, start talking about your consumer. Point 2, hearts, then minds. Stop overloading them with facts. Make an emotional connection. Point 3, make it simple. No one has the brain space these days to learn everything about your business, nor do they need to. That's your job. Make it simple. Point 4, make it quick. No one's going to invest the time they need to learn about you. Instead, you got to get in, get out, nobody gets hurt. Point 5, make it yours. What are you going to own that the competition does not? So when someone sees your marketing, they either say, when someone sees the competition's marketing, when they try to copy you, they either say, oh wow, look, that looks just like so-and-so's, or they might even think it's yours. Make it yours. Point 6, all 5 senses. How are you going to convince your target audience how your brand looks, sounds, smells, tastes, and feels? And point 7, repeat, repeat, repeat. And so I will. Point 1 is all about them. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. I'll be here afterwards if anyone's interested. And as I said, there's plenty of ways to get this information. But I do have a couple things I want to tell you, and I tried to speed up a little bit to leave myself a little bit of time. First of all, again, I wanted to thank you because I do really love talking to meeting planners. Second of all, I wanted to thank the folks from Collinson because we really, with our agency work, with the speaking, it's a group that we work with that we consider friends and partners, and I don't get to do that very often either. And we have this incredible location where we can come and talk together. But most importantly, I want to talk to you about why it's so important what each of you do every single day. Before I do though, let me just tell you one other thing. If you want more information from me, if you want newsletters, if you have other, just on your business card, on the back, just write FU. It's a follow-up. And give it to me, and I will be happy to make sure that you get on our list. What were you thinking exactly? But here's what I want to talk to you about why it's so important what each and every one of you do every day. And I think that this gets lost in our day-to-day business. There's a guy in Miami, he came to Miami rather, on a program called Peter Pan. The Peter Pan program was when kids from Cuba were airlifted out of Cuba, brought to Miami without their parents. And they would live in foster homes, they were sponsored by churches, they were sponsored by schools. And this kid named Pedro came to Miami. I believe he was 16 years old. He didn't speak English, he had no sellable skills. He started going to school, he got a job at the airport. And at the airport, he was a skycap. He would carry bags. And little by little, he moved up in the organization. And he went to high school, and he went to junior college, and he went to college. Today, his name is Peter. And Peter is the president of American Airlines, Latin America, and the Caribbean. Now, there is no other industry that I know of that someone can enter as unskilled labor and 5-10 years later be in management position. Think about how many people in our industry can go in as a chambermaid or a groundsman and then become assistant chambermaid manager and then become director of operations. Think about that for a second. All of the politicians are blathering about jobs. They're all talking about jobs. They don't seem to be doing anything about jobs. But this industry creates jobs. It's true. It means the American dream is alive and well because of what you all do every day. Because you get people to go to these places to provide the jobs. You're actually doing it. People are talking about it. You guys are doing it. But there's a bigger reason why what you do every day matters so much. And I really believe that if people spent time traveling around the world, all of a sudden the world would be a whole lot better place. Roger Dow says that he's the president of TIA. He says that 74% of people from other countries who come to America leave with a favorable impression of America and Americans. Sting wrote a song about the Cold War, and his point was that the refrain was, I hope the Russians love their children too. The idea was, well, if the Russians love their kid, they're not going to press the bomb. If we love ours, we're not going to press the button for the bomb. And of course, the Russians love their children too. But the most eloquent thing I've ever read on it, and I saved it to read it to you, listen to this. Travel is fatal to prejudice, bigotry, and narrow-mindedness. And many of our people need it sorely on these accounts alone. Broad, wholesome, charitable views of man and things cannot be acquired by vegetating in one little corner of the earth for all one's lifetime. That was written in 1867 in a book called Innocents Abroad, The Pilgrim's Progress, by Mark Twain. Mark Twain understood that if people got out and saw the world, and if people from the world came over here, we would have, as he says, wholesome, charitable views of men and things. Because of the work you all do every day, people get out and see the world. That means that every day you go to work, you are making the world a better place. Every day you go to work and a client complains because the PowerPoint didn't work, or there were green M&Ms in the back room, or whatever nonsense they give you, you just remember the world is a better place because of all of you. And so I know ordinarily at this part of the presentation, which is the end, you guys would stand up and give me a rousing ovation, but instead, I want you all to stand up in your meeting planner, so I know you'll do it like that. Stand up. I want you to look around the room and give yourselves a rousing applause because you make the world a better place.